Este es el mejor momento de ahorrar en Verizon porque puedes llevarte hasta 4 teléfonos nuevos. Es muy fácil. Imagínate todo lo que vas a poder hacer con un teléfono nuevo. Este es tu momento de ahorrar. Visita tu tienda Verizon y llévate hasta 4 teléfonos. Sí, 4 teléfonos. Al intercambiar 4 teléfonos de nuestras mejores marcas. Cualquier condición. Con líneas nuevas en Unlimited Ultimate. Se aplican términos de intercambio y otros términos. Solo en Verizon.
Hi, I'm Raj Punjabi from HuffPost.
And I'm Noah Michelson, also from HuffPost.
And we're the hosts of Am I Doing It Wrong? A new podcast that explores the all-too-human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Each week on the podcast, Raj and I pick a new topic that we want to understand better and bring a guest expert on to talk us through how to get it right.
And we're talking like legit, credible experts. Doctors, PhDs, all-around superheroes.
From HuffPost and Acast Studios, check out Am I Doing It Wrong? Wherever you get your podcasts.
Did you know 1 in 2 women wear the wrong foundation? Matching foundation is hard, but Il Maquillage makes it easy. Take the Power Match quiz to find a perfect match in seconds, customized to your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 5-star reviews, Woke Up Like This is our best-selling foundation for a reason. Available in 50 shades of weightless natural coverage. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Just pay shipping. Take the quiz at ilmaquillage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
Doors closing.
Morning, Mason. You are not going to believe what I just saw on the platform.
Oh, geez, what was it this time? More dogs?
Okay, so I get to the platform, and there's this woman just standing there. She's full-on Captain Morgan pose. You know, like 1 foot up, except there was no barrel. Her left leg was just lifted, like she's balancing on 1 foot.
Wait, she's just standing there with one leg up for no reason?
Yep, and she didn't even get on the train. Looked like she was waiting for one going the other way.
Maybe she's trying to audition for a pirate movie. I don't know, maybe she just got tired of standing the normal way like the rest of us.
It was the strangest thing. She was so still, like she was posing for some invisible camera. I swear, the blue line attracts the best characters.
No argument here.
Cicero is next. Doors open on the left. Cicero.
Hey! Turn off those stupid announcements. People are trying to sleep back here, and you keep waking them up with that crap.
Oh no, here we go.
Because that's definitely how you get people to stop talking, by yelling at them.
Right? Nothing says I'm trying to sleep like pounding on the train operator's door.
Doors closed.
Do you hear me? Turn them off.
Well, she's definitely not a morning person.
We've seen worse.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is Tales from the Blue Line by Auditory Anthology.
Este es el mejor momento de ahorrar en Verizon porque puedes llevarte hasta 4 teléfonos nuevos. Es muy fácil. Imagínate todo lo que vas a poder hacer con un teléfono nuevo. Este es tu momento de ahorrar. Visita tu tienda Verizon y llévate hasta 4 teléfonos. Sí, 4 teléfonos. Al intercambiar 4 teléfonos de nuestras mejores marcas. Cualquier condición. Con líneas nuevas en Unlimited Ultimate. Se aplican términos de intercambio y otros términos. Solo en Verizon.
Picture this, you're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realise you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything, brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need, and it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. eBay, things people love.
I got a weird one for you today. I can't even remember where I first heard this story, but it's about a TV crew filming in this old abandoned building. Things go normal at first, but then people start disappearing.
Disappearing? Like, into thin air?
Yeah, being a TV producer is a dangerous business.
Oh, okay, let's hear it.
The abandoned building loomed ahead. its cracked windows and crumbling facade barely visible through the late afternoon haze. David, the producer, wasn't fazed. He'd filmed in places like this before. Creepiness was good for ratings. "All right, let's get moving. We got a tight schedule," David said as the crew unloaded their gear from the van. Kara, the lead camera woman, rolled her eyes at David's constant push for efficiency. Lucas, the sound technician, was humming to himself, pretending not to notice how the old building sent a chill down his spine. "This place gives me the creeps," Lucas muttered, his voice low enough that only Rebecca, the junior producer, could hear him. She smiled nervously, trying to hide her own unease. This was her first big gig with the team, and she wasn't about to let on that the building made her skin crawl. "It'll be fine," Rebecca whispered back. "It's just an old building." "Yeah, old and haunted," Lucas said. The group approached the entrance, massive wooden doors groaning as they pushed them open. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the echo of their footsteps bounced off the peeling walls. The dim light from the windows cast long shadows that flickered as the team moved through the narrow hallways. "Okay, let's set up in the main hall," David said, glancing down at the map of the building's layout. "We'll do some B-roll of the interiors first, then shoot the intro once we got the lighting set." "I'll scout out the next room," Kara said, her voice echoing off the walls as she disappeared into the darkness. David watched her go before turning back to the others. "Rebecca, you got the list of shots, right?" "Yeah, we're good to go," Rebecca said. "But I don't know. There's something strange about this place." David glanced around. The building was massive, its corridors winding and endless, but that was typical for a location like this. "It's just old," he said. "Perfect for the kind of mood we want." "Let's just get this done," Lucas said. "The sooner we're out of here, the better." The building's narrow hallways seemed to stretch endlessly, the dim light flickering through the cracked windows, casting eerie shadows along the floor. Kara moved ahead of the group, her camera trained on the surroundings as she scouted out the next room. "Hold up, I'm going to check out this area," she said to David, who was still setting up in the main hall. David waved her on, more focused on getting the lighting right than keeping track of every crew member. As Kara's footsteps echoed away into the distance, Lucas adjusted his sound equipment, picking up strange, faint sounds from the static in his headset. He frowned, tapping the side of his gear. "David, you hear that?" "Hear what?" David asked, barely paying attention. "There's this sound, almost like footsteps, but different. It's probably just interference," Lucas muttered, though the unease in his voice was clear. "Focus, Lucas. We got a lot to shoot," David responded, brushing off the comment. He looked around, but the hallways were empty, save for the faint echo of Kara's voice coming through the comms. And then, nothing. "Kara?" David called into his radio after a moment of silence. "Kara, do you copy?" No response. "Great," David said. "She's probably just out of range." But Lucas was already on edge. He tapped his headset again, calling out, "Kara, you there?" Still no response. "All right, let's go find her," David said. "She probably just wandered off." They walked through the hallway Kara had gone down, their footsteps echoing against the cracked walls. The further they went, the darker it seemed to get. As they reached the room where Kara had last been, they found nothing. No sign of her. "Kara!" David called, his voice echoing through the empty space. There was no answer. The room was eerily still, and the only sound was the faint hum of their equipment. Lucas, who had followed behind them, glanced at the doorway. "This doesn't make any sense. There's no way she could have just disappeared." David checked the footage Kara had been recording, replaying the last few seconds. The video showed her panning the room, walking toward a doorway at the far end, and then static. She was gone, as if she had vanished mid-step. "This has to be a joke," David said. "Where could she have gone?" Rebecca asked, We were right behind her. I told you something was off about this place, Lucas said. She didn't leave. She just disappeared. David looked around, trying to stay calm, but the growing sense of dread in his chest was undeniable. The building seemed to close in around them, the walls pressing closer as if the space itself had shifted. Kara's gone, Lucas said, and I don't think we're getting her back. David, Lucas, and Rebecca stood in the empty room, their breath shallow, the weight of Kara's disappearance settling in. The silence in the building felt suffocating, and every sound seemed to echo endlessly. We need to find her, David said, trying to keep his voice steady. She couldn't have just vanished into thin air. I don't like this, Lucas said. I've heard stories about places like this, buildings that mess with your mind. What if this place is, different? Different? How? Rebecca asked, her voice barely a whisper. I've read about buildings that exist in multiple dimensions, Lucas said. Weird stuff happens in them. People get lost. They see things that aren't there. Sometimes they just disappear. David rolled his eyes, trying to suppress his own growing fear. Come on, Lucas. We've been in plenty of creepy places, and nothing like that's ever happened. Kara's around here somewhere. No, I'm serious, Lucas said. What if every doorway here leads somewhere else, like a different version of this building? David was about to brush it off when something strange caught his eye. A doorway at the far end of the room. It hadn't been there before. He was certain of it. They had passed through this space just minutes earlier, and now a door stood in the middle of the wall, slightly ajar. That wasn't there before, David said, his brow furrowing as he walked toward the door. Lucas and Rebecca followed closely. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, but something about it seemed wrong. The light was off, and objects in the room beyond were out of place. Subtle things like chairs facing the wrong direction, or picture frames slightly askew. This is what I'm talking about, Lucas said. The building is shifting. Every time we walk through a doorway, we're not in the same place anymore. David hesitated at the threshold, a knot forming in his stomach. He didn't believe in supernatural nonsense, but this was something different. He glanced back at Rebecca, who looked as confused and scared as he felt. All right, let's go, he said, stepping through the doorway cautiously. Lucas and Rebecca followed, their breaths shallow as they entered the new hallway. It looked almost identical to the one they'd just been in, except for those subtle differences. The lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The hallway stretched on longer than it should have, and every doorway they passed felt like it was hiding something. They continued walking, but the farther they went, the more they felt disconnected from where they had been. Suddenly, Lucas stopped in his tracks. "Look!" he said, pointing to the ground. There, faint but visible, were Kara's footprints. They trailed off into the distance, leading toward another doorway at the far end of the hall. David felt a chill run down his spine. She's been here recently. But the hallway stretched on, twisting and turning as if it were playing tricks on them. The deeper they went, the more disoriented they became. Doors that had been there moments ago disappeared. Hallways seemed to shift, and the building felt alive, pulling them deeper into its maze. "We need to go back," Lucas said. "This place isn't right. It's like it's trying to keep us here." "Not yet," David said. "We have to find Kara." The disorienting hallways seemed to stretch endlessly before them, twisting and turning like a labyrinth that refused to let them go. The farther they ventured, the more it felt as if the building itself was alive, shifting the walls and doorways to confuse and entrap them. The air grew heavier, and the strange sensation of being watched pressed down on all of them. "Kara has to be close," David said. He was trying to convince himself as much as the others. Rebecca was lagging slightly behind, her eyes darting around nervously. This place is a nightmare. I feel like we've walked in circles, but everything keeps changing. Stay close, David said, turning a corner. We can't afford to get separated. But just as the words left his mouth, the air seemed to thicken, and the light overhead flickered for a brief second. In that instant, Rebecca, who had been walking right behind them, vanished. "Rebecca?" Lucas asked, his eyes wide with panic. "Rebecca!" David whirled around too, but Rebecca was gone. There was no sound, no sign of a struggle. She had simply disappeared. One moment she was there, and the next she was gone, as if the building had swallowed her whole. "Rebecca!" David called, rushing back down the hall, searching for any trace of her. But there was nothing. The hallway was empty. The only sound, the faint buzz of the flickering lights overhead. "She was right here!" Lucas shouted, his voice shaking. "She was right here! How can she just—" "We need to stay calm," David said. "Panicking won't help us. She couldn't have gone far." "She didn't go anywhere," Lucas said. "This place is— I told you it's not right. It's shifting. It's pulling us apart." David's mind raced, but he couldn't argue with Lucas. 2 of his crew members had now disappeared without a trace, and the building seemed to be playing tricks on them, warping their sense of direction and reality. "We'll find her," David said. Lucas was growing more agitated by the second. No. We need to get out of here. We need to leave, David, before it's too late." David opened his mouth to argue, but just as he did, the hallway seemed to warp again, the edges of the walls bending ever so slightly. He blinked, feeling a wave of dizziness wash over him. Lucas turned and bolted, running down the corridor toward what he thought was the exit. "Lucas, wait!" David shouted. But it was too late. Lucas sprinted toward a doorway at the end of the hall, convinced it would lead them out of the building. But as he reached the threshold and stepped through, he vanished, just like Kara and Rebecca. One moment he was there, and the next, the space where he stood was empty. David stared in horror, frozen in place as he tried to comprehend what had just happened. Lucas hadn't simply run ahead. He had disappeared, as if the doorway had swallowed him whole. David's heart pounded in his chest. He was alone now, completely alone. The walls seemed to close in around him, and the eerie silence pressed down on him like a weight. He took a step back, his mind racing. David stood, frozen, his pulse thundering in his ears. The building had claimed them, Kara, Rebecca, Lucas. He was the last one left, trapped in this twisted maze of dimensions. The hallway stretched out before him, but it no longer felt like a place that followed the laws of reality. Every step felt like a gamble, each doorway a potential trap. Desperation gripped him. He couldn't leave them behind, not without trying one last time. He retraced his steps, searching for any sign of his crew. But the building seemed to mock him. Hallways shifted, doorways appeared and disappeared, and everything felt wrong. It was as if the building was alive, aware of his presence, manipulating the space around him. Then, as he walked down yet another corridor, something familiar caught his eye. Footprints, faint and dusty, but there they were. They led toward a doorway at the far end of the hall, the same doorway Lucas had disappeared through moments ago. David's heart pounded. He had no other choice. He approached the doorway slowly, his breath shallow. The air around the door seemed to shimmer slightly, as if the fabric of reality was thinner there. He paused for a moment, then stepped through. Everything changed. The hallway on the other side felt different. It was the same building, but the atmosphere was heavier, the shadows darker. David looked around, his heart racing, unsure if he was in the same place or in a different version of it altogether. He called out, his voice echoing eerily down the hall. Kira! Rebecca! Lucas! No answer. He moved forward cautiously, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. As he reached the end of the hallway, he heard something. Faint voices, barely audible, as if they were coming from far away. His heart leapt. It was them, his crew. David followed the sound, turning corner after corner, moving deeper into the building's twisted reality. The voices grew louder, clearer, but they still seemed just out of reach. He called out again, this time more urgently. "I'm here! Where are you?" Suddenly, he found himself in a large, empty room. The walls were lined with mirrors, reflecting the dim light in strange, disorienting ways. In the center of the room, there was a door, slightly ajar, with a soft light spilling from beyond it. The voices were louder now, almost as if they were calling him from the other side. David hesitated for a moment, his hand hovering over the door handle. He could feel the pull of the building, the way it seemed to warp and bend reality around him. But he couldn't leave without his crew. Taking a deep breath, David pushed the door open and stepped through. On the other side, the room was almost identical to the one he had just left, except now he was no longer alone. Kara, Rebecca, and Lucas stood there, their backs to him, facing the wall. They were motionless, eerily still, as if frozen in place. "Kara? Lucas?" David called out, his voice trembling. No response. They didn't move. David stepped closer, his heart pounding, dread creeping into his chest. He reached out, his hand shaking as he touched Kara's shoulder. But the moment his fingers made contact, her body crumbled, disintegrating into dust before his eyes. "No!" David whispered. One by one, his crew vanished, their forms dissolving into nothingness as if they had never been there at all. As he knelt there, the voices faded, the room grew darker, and the walls began to close in. The last thing David saw before the darkness consumed him was the doorway, the one that had led him here, and he realized, too late, that there had never been a way out.
Okay, so that was freaky. And you don't remember where you heard it?
No idea. Could have been one of the producers at the station, or maybe something from a location scout we did. But yeah, it stuck with me.
No kidding. Vanishing people, shifting hallways, alternate dimensions. That's some serious Twilight Zone stuff.
I was thinking more Lovecraft, but sure. It's one of those stories that just lingers, you know?
Yeah, I can't blame you. I've been in enough strange situations working with the night shift that I'm not ruling anything out. Hospitals, especially at night, they can feel like their own little dimension sometimes.
Right, it's one of those eerie, quiet moments when you start to feel like something's just a little off. You ever have a shift like that?
A few. You'd be surprised how many shadow figures you hear about from other nurses. Sometimes you just know things are not right in the air.
Great, now I'm never visiting you at work.
All right, I'll make sure to leave a note saying Mason was here in case you ever do. Just in case you vanish into an alternate dimension.
Perfect. It'll be the next episode on our show, A Vanishing Producer.
Now that's a story I'd love to tell.
Catch you tomorrow, Allie. Can't wait to hear your next creepy story.
Later, Mason, and trust me, tomorrow's story will top this one.
Doors closing.
Este es el mejor momento de ahorrar en Verizon porque puedes llevarte hasta 4 teléfonos nuevos. Es muy fácil. Imagínate todo lo que vas a poder hacer con un teléfono nuevo. Este es tu momento de ahorrar. Visita tu tienda Verizon y llévate hasta 4 teléfonos. Sí, 4 teléfonos. Al intercambiar 4 teléfonos de nuestras mejores marcas. Cualquier condición. Con líneas nuevas en Unlimited Ultimate. Se aplican términos de intercambio y otros términos. Solo en Verizon.
Picture this, you're halfway through a DIY car fix, tools scattered everywhere, and boom, you realise you're missing a part. It's okay, because you know whatever it is, it's on eBay. They've got everything: brakes, headlights, cold air intakes, whatever you need. And it's guaranteed to fit, which means no more crossing your fingers and hoping you ordered the right thing. All the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. eBay. Things people love.
Tales from the Blue Line by Auditory Anthology is written and produced by me, Keith Conrad. Your narrator is Darren Marlar. Be sure to check out Darren's award-winning paranormal podcast, Weird Darkness, available at WeirdDarkness.com and your podcast app of choice. If you like what you hear, I hope you'll take the time to rate and review our show on your podcast player of choice, and be sure to recommend it to a friend. It will help us grow the podcast and continue to share these stories with you each and every week. And if you have a story you'd like to contribute to the series, you can visit submissions.soundconceptmedia.com or just follow the link in the show notes.
Este es el mejor momento de ahorrar en Verizon porque puedes llevarte hasta 4 teléfonos nuevos. Es muy fácil. Imagínate todo lo que vas a poder hacer con un teléfono nuevo. Este es tu momento de ahorrar. Visita tu tienda Verizon y llévate hasta 4 teléfonos. Sí, 4 teléfonos. Al intercambiar 4 teléfonos de nuestras mejores marcas. Cualquier condición. Con líneas nuevas en Unlimited Ultimate. Se aplican términos de intercambio y otros términos. Solo en Verizon.
Did you know 1 in 2 women wear the wrong foundation? Matching foundation is hard, but Il Maquillage makes it easy. Take the Power Match quiz to find a perfect match in seconds, customized to your unique skin tone, undertone, and coverage needs. With 600,000 5-star reviews, Woke Up Like This is our best-selling foundation for a reason. Available in 50 shades of weightless natural coverage. And with Try Before You Buy, you can try your full size at home for 14 days. Just pay shipping. Take the quiz at ilmakiage.com/quiz. That's ILMAKIAGE.com/quiz.
Hi, I'm Raj Punjabi from HuffPost.
And I'm Noah Michelson, also from HuffPost.
And we're the hosts of Am I Doing It Wrong?, a new podcast that explores the all-too-human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Each week on the podcast, Raj and I pick a new topic that we want to understand better and bring a guest expert on to talk us through how to get it right.
And we're talking like legit, credible experts. Doctors, PhDs, all-around superheroes.
From HuffPost and Acast Studios, check out Am I Doing It Wrong? Wherever you get your podcasts.